What's good? What's good? What's good? Allergies been whooping my ass all week, but hey, it is what it is. We in this thing. You are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph, here with another good episode. Solo Dolo. Um, I am still looking for a co-host, so if you're interested, bang my line. But before we get started, get into all the pleasantries. Make sure we're sending a little shout out to the sponsors. If you're looking for a photo to do a photo shoot, record a music video, or a podcast like what you're watching, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And then if you're looking for a clean, no crash, genderless energy drink, use promo code JUK for 20% off. We're going to get you right. And then make sure you go like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff on all of the socials. They'll be flowing down there on the ticker on the bottom. But if you're here on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're here from Facebook, go over to JUK Network, Juke Network. Follow that page. Once I get to 100 followers there, I can take everything from the He Say She Say channel, convert it over to where it's just a simple, you're looking up one name on different socials. And so let's get straight into it, man. I'm wearing my Raiders gear, drinking water from my Raiders cup. The NFL draft just wrapped up over the weekend. Shedeur was the talk of the town. But before I get into all of that, I'm a Raider fan, and I'm covering things locally first. I'm not a big hockey guy, so I probably won't end up covering too much night stuff unless something changes. But for now, basketball, football, and eventually baseball, and then we up from there. Boxing and UFC too. But Raiders draft grade, I'm going to give it an A, and I'm going to go over why. I think that years past, as I've got into this space, I've really paid attention to the way that the Raiders draft. I feel like too often we have people like, what was it, Alex Smallwood or something like that. I forgot Alex Leatherwood. He was a third grade talent. We grabbed him in the first round. People felt like we reached for Josh Jacobs. People felt like we've reached for a Henry Ruggs. Some of which worked out, some didn't necessarily work out in the end. But I do think with this, we got a lot of good value at the piece that we got. The only one that I would think that we kind of reached was Ashton Jeanty. I think that in the end, getting the best running back at a position of need, that you saw the difference between when we had Josh Jacobs to, I think it was Zamir White after that, and it just wasn't the same output and production. So going into it, you get an Ashton Jeanty, plug back there, plug and play. He's running back, has the potential to be a top 5 running back right out the gate. So you getting Geno Smith some help is a position of need. Then we draft Jack Beck. Once I started looking into him, really paying attention and doing my research, I learned something that I didn't necessarily know. I did not know he played at LSU. And when you look into his numbers, he led the LSU in receptions on a team that had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. So I think you're getting a really good hands, a legit number 2. I do believe he's another plug and play, just needs to learn our playbook and the way that Chip Kelly is going to use him. But I do think that Chip Kelly will be able to get a lot out of him. Then going into Darian Porter. When you look at his measurables, sounds like a couple other corners that Pete Carroll had drafted. A former wide receiver converts to a cornerback who's about 6'3", 6'4", 200, ran a 4.3, and a couple of those measurables remind you of a Richard Sherman, a Tariq Woolen. This is a typical Pete Carroll style corner, and I think that this is someone that can. I don't know if he's a day 1 starter, but I do believe by year 2 or 3, he's a legit number 1 corner on our team. Caleb Rogers, another versatile offensive lineman from Texas Tech, played everywhere from right tackle to the guard position, even had some snaps at the Senior Bowl at the center position. So it gives us a versatile offensive lineman. And then someone that, depending on what happens with Colton Miller, he can either end up replacing him at left tackle or play on the opposite side of him as long as we get a deal done. Charles Grant Offensive tackle from William and Mary, one of the best athletes in all of this draft. His own coach compared him to the Brickishaw Ferguson, tackle for the Jets, who was a very good tackle for many years. So if we're getting that type of production out of our first 5 picks, and then when we start going into JJ, was it Millet or Malat? Was a wide receiver. Or he was a quarterback in college. We're gonna use him at wide receiver. We get Cam Miller, who put up numbers against Colorado out of North Dakota State. So I feel like we got a lot of good value, which is why I gave us an A. I feel like some of these players may not be the sexiest picks, but I do think that for positional needs and being able to have a mixture of potential and people that can produce right now, I think you got to. We're heading in the right direction. Getting a Pete Carroll, keeping Graham, our defensive coordinator, and our defensive line coach. I feel like keeping some kind of solidarity on one side and revamping the other, i.e., bringing in a Chip Kelly, who I think is a great offensive coordinator, terrible head coach. And so Shedeur slides, like I mentioned, he was the talk of the town. The question is, why did he slide? And I do think that there are some things as like a person that right now I'm a store manager at my job. So there's some things that I feel like when it comes to running a business, I understand why you wouldn't do certain things. I do interviews. He interviewed great. He interviewed poorly. He came in. There's reports of him being unprepared, although I do personally find it a little weird with how much Deion Sanders it prepares, always prepared, watched film, and made sure he was ready. That Shedeur spending so much time with him, why he would all of a sudden pick now to not be prepared to do something. I'm just kind of curious as what the story is behind that and what did he mean by not being prepared. But he interviewed poorly. He was very brash and in your face with confidence. I think that the thing about that is we always say when it comes to a sports concept is check the tape. The problem that I don't have a problem with Shedeur if you just had him going in the second round and not the first round. But to drop from a lot of people had him 1, 2, or 3 on the quarterback list to drop to the 5th round lets you know that there's something more than just what's on tape. Now, if you're just saying, hey, he's not super fast, he doesn't have a rocket arm, he didn't come in and light it up like the way that we thought he would. And those are all things that he holds the ball too long, created a lot of sacks for himself. Those are things that are all valid points. But there's plenty of people that when you start to have these conversations and you go back through history, the brashness, the confidence, the cockiness, arrogance, it's where that I feel like they were trying to show him a lesson and that no one's bigger than the shield. And I get all of that. It is what it is. I just didn't think it would be this bad to the point where he goes from a first round, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick to sliding to the 5th round. Because I do think, though, the one thing that the points that I've been hearing in the thing I think is really I do agree with and I do understand is once he slipped past 3, at that point, you're putting yourself in a realm of where you're going to be a backup. After you got out the 2nd round, honestly, you're a 3rd round quarterback. You're most likely going to be a backup. It is what it is. They're not going to put that high of a draft stock into someone that's a starter or someone. If you're a 1 or a 2 or 1st or 2nd round, yeah, they're probably going to give you a really good chance at becoming the starter. Those are starter picks, especially from a quarterback standpoint. At 3. It's possible for you to be a starter. It's possible for you to be a backup player. It just depends on what that depth chart looks like. Like Darian Porter is someone that can end up being a starter year 1 because he was a 3rd round pick It just depends on what our cornerback depth chart looks like at the moment. But I think that once he slipped past that third, fourth round, you're a backup. And if you go and you look, and I looked this up just shortly before, within the last 5 Instagram posts, Shedeur makes up at least 1 or 2 of those posts. And so for him to be a 5th round pick and to be up top on NFL's Instagram posts or social media posts where you have him, Travis Hunter here, Cam Ward here, and then Shedeur is somewhere in those pictures. And no 5th round pick, let alone quarterback, is going to be the top of the viewership. Like when you started to watch the 2nd round, the 3rd round, the 4th round, you're watching to see where Shedeur is getting drafted. And so his name and who he is brings attention, and him being a backup is just not the kind of attention that you would want. Especially when it's a backup player. Like if you have someone like a Kenny Pickett is someone that people would say Shedeur is better than. But if you don't even give Kenny Pickett a chance, but you're just straight up going Shedeur's going to get a lot of media attention just for being a backup, and especially if Kenny Pickett start playing like trash, which I do believe he will. Segue into this. Given some of the people that I mentioned, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles, the Browns ended up drafting Dylan Gabriel, who I think I had Dylan Gabriel as like a 6th or 7th quarterback in this class, and I had Shedeur at number 1 for me personally. So is this him sliding a blessing in disguise? And me personally, I understand the uphill battle that he is preparing for, because being a 5th round pick on a team that has 5 quarterbacks or 4. Yeah, 4 quarterbacks. Well, no, I think they got 5 because it's Joe Flacco, Deshaun, Shedeur, Dylan, and Kenny Pickett. Yeah, they got 5 quarterbacks. Deshaun's not going to play this year, so you got to worry about him. There's only so many reps that he's going to get for an opportunity to go out there and win a starting job. So I do think that like his margin for error is not that big, but I think that going into it, knowing that Shedeur was already projected to be better than Dylan Gabriel, I think that's a winnable battle. Now, it's just whether or not can he get to number 2 on the depth chart? Because I do think a 40-year-old Joe Flacco being the quarterback for the year, I think that Shedeur gets some playing time. Now, I do think that it can be a blessing in disguise because you beat out Kenny Pickett, you beat out Dylan Gabriel. All you got to do is give him the opportunity, really perform, and you can beat out Deshaun because they've already said, the Cleveland Browns have already said that they swung and missed on Deshaun. So if they can find a way to get from underneath that contract or just deal with it, pay him to leave type of thing, hey, I think that this is a battle a war that can be won. And I think that Shedeur will, honestly. I think that at least by next year, I think this 1 year, I think he'll move up to 2. I think he'll end up being the backup to Joe Flacco, and eventually he will get an opportunity to go out there and show what he can do from a franchise quarterback standpoint. And I look forward to it, man. I think it sucks that a lot of the times, like we tell people I feel like he did everything the right way until he got to the draft. I feel like he has the swag, the confidence that you look for in a quarterback. He has the ability to lead men, the cachet, never got in trouble, did the right things on the field, and then gets to the draft combine and makes some mistakes that a young man will end up making. And then it ends up costing him essentially $35 million, $45 million, and going from a top 5 pick to a 5th round pick. So hopefully he comes in humble, head down, ready to work, bust ass, and I think that he'll end up doing it. And so the ACES WNBA season is coming up. It is upon us. And so looking at the odds, I think the season starts. I think our first game out here, the Las Vegas Aces, I think they play on the 17th. So I do believe the season starts in 2 weeks. We just getting ready for some preseason games. I've been seeing people's training camp interviews. So I do think that season is starting up 17th. How far can the Aces go right now? They are a where's it at? Where's it at? What there it is. Right now, Vegas has them tied for second best odds to get to the finals. New York Liberty are at 1. Indiana Fever right there. We're tied with them, which could put us at 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it. They have the top 3 odds of making it to the finals. I think that all in all, and I do believe that it will work. I do think, but the one thing that scares me the most is Chelsea Gray and how much basketball does she have left in the tank? Because I do think that Asia is best player in the league. If Jewel Lloyd can be what she has been previously, I think that we'll have a really good opportunity to go out there and get to the finals. Being able to throw Jewel and Jackie at someone like a Sabrina or Caitlin Clark in those big moments, I think will pay dividends in the long run. But I do think that Chelsea Gray, given age and availability, those are things that scare me a little bit. But if they could stick with their averages, I feel like in this year will be good. I think that we could get to a finals. I think last year we had to get rid of Kelsey, or going into this offseason, I said it, we had to get rid of Kelsey. Jewel Lloyd is not a lockdown defender, but at least she's a bucket that you can depend on night in and night out. And I felt Kelsey had kind of got to a point of a major inconsistency. So I think with Asia being a 20, she's typically around 23 points, but last year she averaged 27, 12 rebounds, 2 assists. I think she could go up from a assist standpoint. Points might come down where I think Jewel Lloyd, her 20, 5 and 4. I feel like assists will probably go up just strictly being there with Asia, a pick and roll with Asia, being able to have and also shoot from a better 3-point percentage. She was like a 35, 36% free throw shooter. I mean, not free throw, 3-point shooter. And she dropped down into the 20s, where I think getting those shots from an Asia in the post, being able to suck in the defense, kick it out, I think with as long as everybody stays healthy, we have as good a shot as anybody in the W to be able to get to the finals. I do think that how our bench ends up shaping out is going to be a major contributor too. But because I do think that Chelsea can do good if you stagger her minutes, give her an opportunity to be the main person on like a bench role or playing with bench players, while also being able to be someone to run the offense and let Jackie and Jewel come off the ball a little bit. And so Eastern Conference got a couple closeout games that just happened. Heat get blown out by 55 by the Cavs. Can the Cavs make it to the finals? And I think when you start to think about these matchups here, Cavs are going to play the Pacers. Pistons win another game. And the Celtics, I believe the Celtics either play tomorrow. Yeah, I think the Celtics play tomorrow. Hold on, let's look it up real quick. Oh, no, Celtics won. Celtics are on to the next round. So Celtics are waiting the winner of the Pistons and Knicks. Cavs blow out the Heat, are playing the Pacers. Who gets to the finals? Honestly, I feel like they have as good a chance as anybody. I think the Celtics team is really a really deep roster that they can go 8 players that's shooting at least 10 threes. Now, if they're hitting, it's going to be a rough night for you. If they're off, it's going to be a rough night for them. And so I do think that Cavs have an opportunity here. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell getting Hunter at the trade deadline was phenomenal. A great low key crazy pickup. Something that they needed perfectly for that team. A defender that can go get 20 points every night, but also a tough defender, rebounder, playing with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Like, I think that they can. There's a part of me that's just like, I don't know if they'll beat the Celtics, but I do think in the end, I do think that they can. They can do it, but I just don't know if they will, is the thing. Eventually, I got to make a decision, but I got at least one more round before I got to tell y'all what my decision is. But Pacers complete that sweep. Was this the gentleman's sweep, not an actual sweep, gentleman's sweep? Pacers in 5. I don't want to take away from the Pacers, but I do think for the sake of basketball and where in the direction it's headed in, we have to have the conversation of Giannis and the Bucks and what this means for that organization. Do they trade Giannis? Does Giannis ask out? Do they wait and see what happens with Dame after tearing his Achilles? Shout out to him. Speedy recovery to you. But I think that you got to have that conversation now to take a page out of Carmelo Anthony's playbook. Got to have a conversation here. And if you trade Giannis, there goes every chance that you had of being relevant. So are you ready for a rebuild? And that's the part here where, because it's going to be tough to get free agents. Free agents don't typically go to Milwaukee. So being able to get someone like a Giannis to come there in free agency, so you're probably going to end up having to trade for some picks. I think that in all, the Thunder did get lucky getting SGA, but I think you take a play out of their playbook, the Rockets, trade Giannis, get as many picks, young pieces as possible, and then build your team through the draft. And then it's going to take some time. You're going to deal with 5-6 years of obscurity, but in the long run, you hit on them draft picks, hey, you're good as money. And so Pistons are able to sneak out another one. This and the Nuggets series are the two best series in all of the playoffs. It's so competitive. Good basketball, good gritty physical basketball, and I'm really enjoying it. But I think in the end, I think the Knicks are going to end up being too much for the Pistons. Kind of like what I thought. How the first 2-3 games went was kind of how I thought this series would go. I felt like the Pistons have a lot of talent, but necessarily haven't been there in these moments to know how to handle them. And they folded the first 2 games. Honestly, the series should be over at this point, but giving up those first 2 games when they had leads and then 20-point leads to keep giving up those leads and losing in the end. I think they won the second game, but they definitely lost the first one. So this series should be 3-2 the other way, honestly. And so Oklahoma City Thunder are waiting for the Nuggets and Clippers. That series is at 2-2. Lakers is finna get – dang, Shannon, it's finna be – Lakers finna lose in 5. Rockets struggling with the Warriors. This is another one of those good, talented young team, but just haven't been there in these moments. Jimmy Butler playing phenomenally. Buddy Hield out here locking up. Steph being Steph and doing Steph things. And Draymond holding it all together, man. I just think that the NBA playoffs has been good. But I do got Warriors going up against – I got Warriors, Wolves, and then I'm going to go Nuggets, Thunder, because I don't think the Clippers – the Clippers could, but I am going to pick the Nuggets to go to get the Thunder in the next round, though. And then so I got a fast break before we get up out of here. Take a sip of water because we're going to do the talking fast. Not a plan. Yeah, all in all, man, Nico Harrison, when it comes to these damn press conferences, when they ask you about Luka, shut the hell up. Like, I get it. It's not nice to not answer the questions. You don't want to be that rude guy and be like, oh yeah, next question. But stop answering questions about Luka. Like, you look terrible every time. Because how are you as the GM don't understand and didn't realize how important Luka was to the Dallas Mavericks fan base? You just sound so tone deaf. I don't understand it. I don't get it. How you not know that? So when they ask you about Luka, zip it, shut it, don't say nothing. Next question, because you look terrible every time. Shout out to Doug Christie. Was the interim head coach for the Sacramento Kings after what's my man? I call it Milk Dud Head. But Coach Mike Brown gets fired. Doug Christie takes over the team. Had a little bit of success, an up and down season, but they're giving him the official head coaching position, multi-year contract. For 31 stretch, he was 20-11, went 7-13 down the last 20 games of the season. Like I said, has a good mixture of good vets. You still got Sabonis, you got Zach LaVine, you got DeMar DeRozan, you got good young players. Keegan Murray, what's the kid that they just drafted? Long hair with locks. Shout out. Thanks, Pop. Love you. Thanks for watching. But I think that he's getting a good team that has potential to be able to at least be a playoff contender on a year-by-year basis as long as they build out the roster the correct way. But getting an opportunity, we always see players advocating for other players to be able to get these opportunities. So be able to get this opportunity with a team that you are known to play, like you're a popular player for this organization, I think is a great thing for Doug Christie. So shout out to him. And talking about his teammate, Mike Bibby got an opportunity as the head coach of Sacramento State. He's able to get Shaq as the GM over there because there's this new phenomenon of former players going and being GMs of colleges to help get transfers in and help with the legalities and getting money to these programs to get players in. But they get Mikey Williams, who was a major prep star. I was a huge fan of his in high school. What he's done since his senior year, shooting at people in a car that was outside of his house, some of the other stuff that he's done, he transfers to Sacramento State. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for the kid. Honestly, Mike Bibby is one of the best point guards of his generation. And is a very well-respected player amongst his peers. So I think being able to learn from someone like that, having Shaq at your disposal as well, to be able to bounce ideas and thoughts and learn from him as well, I think will pay dividends for the kid in the long run. And before I get up out of here, JJ McCarthy says that he feels like I'm ready to start. And I think he is, because I thought last year, I think he could have done and maybe been a little better than Sam Darnold had he not tore his ACL. So I think that JJ McCarthy, now that Sam Darnold is no longer there, is going to get a great opportunity to go out there, ball out, get the starting position as long as he shows that his knee is healthy. And yeah, I think he's ready. Now, how far can he take them? He has weapons, plenty of weapons to be at his disposal. So, and look at what Sam Darnold did. Sky's the limit. But I do got to get up out of here. Thank you all for watching. Like I said, if you're on Twitch, follow me. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, share it. If you're on Instagram, follow me at KYNG That's on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, add an _ for X or Twitter. Subscribe at Juke Network on YouTube, and follow us at Juke Network on Facebook. I do got to get up out of here. I appreciate y'all for watching. Jeez, Ralph.